I'm standing in my kitchen holding a cup of coffee that's gone cold, listening to my son talk about square footage. He's got his phone out, showing his wife something on the screen, and neither of them is looking at me. The funeral was 4 days ago, my wife of 41 years. 4 days. The detached garage alone adds significant value, my son Neil is saying to his wife Linda, and the lot is oversized for this neighborhood. If we list in spring, we're looking at strong numbers. I set the mug down. Neil, he looked up, not quite meeting my eyes. Dad, we've been over this. The house is too big for one person. It's a lot of upkeep. I've been managing this house for 30 years. You were managing it with Mom. He said it like that settled the matter. Like Barbara's absence had automatically transferred some authority over to him. Linda was already walking through to the living room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. Barbara had refinished herself 15 years ago. She had a notepad. She was writing things down. Let me back up. My name is Gerald Thompson. I'm 68 years old, retired from Ford Motor Company where I worked as a plant foreman for 40 years. Started on the line in 1983, worked my way up through the union ranks. Barbara and I built everything together from scratch. The house in Dearborn, the savings, the life. We had Neil in 1984, and my nephew Carl grew up in and out of our house after his dad passed when Carl was 8. Barbara treated Carl like he was hers, packed his lunches, drove him to hockey practice, showed up to his high school graduation even though her arthritis was already giving her trouble. Neil moved to Phoenix in 2012 with Linda. Good job opportunity, he said. Insurance adjuster. They came back for holidays and called on birthdays. When Barbara got her diagnosis in 2021, they started calling more. When she declined faster than any of us expected, they started visiting more. After she passed, they stayed. That's where it started to go wrong. I didn't say anything else that evening. I let them finish their coffee and walked them to the door. The maple in the front yard had already dropped its leaves. Barbara had planted that tree 25 years ago when it was barely a sapling. I used to tease her we'd never live to see it reach the roof line. It was well past the roof now. Barbara Ann Thompson was 63 when she died. She taught 4th grade at Lincoln Elementary for 35 years and was the most quietly capable person I ever knew. We met in 1982 at a mutual friend's party. I was working construction between layoffs at Ford, trying to get my foot in the door at the plant. She was teaching and had this way of listening that made you feel like what you were saying actually mattered. She had dark hair and wore a blue dress that night, and when I asked her to dance, even though there wasn't really dancing happening, she said yes anyway. The week after the funeral, Linda asked me if I had spoken to a financial advisor lately. I said I hadn't seen the need. She nodded slowly. The way you nod at someone who has just said something concerning. That same week, Neil asked me if I had considered simplifying my arrangements. I was 68 years old, retired from the plant for 3 years, perfectly healthy. Living in a paid-off 4-bedroom house in Dearborn with a union pension that covered my expenses. I didn't know what there was to simplify. I learned quickly enough. Neil sat me down 10 days after Barbara's funeral and explained with charts on his phone that the house represented an underperforming asset. He said that for a man my age, living alone, maintaining a property this size was a liability. He said there were beautiful communities for active seniors where I would have everything I needed in one place and people my own age to spend time with. He mentioned one called Sunshine Manor, which he had apparently already researched, and showed me photos of the lobby. The lobby looked like a hotel. Beige carpet, artificial plants, people sitting around looking like they were waiting for something that wasn't coming. I looked at the photos. I looked at my son. I'm not moving to a nursing home. Dad, it's not a nursing home, it's assisted living. There's a difference. I'm 68. I just lost your mother. I'm not moving anywhere. He let it go for about a week. Then Linda came by on a Thursday when Neil was at some work meeting. She brought a casserole, which I appreciated, and then asked if she could look at the upstairs bathroom because she'd noticed the grout looked like it might be going. I said sure, go ahead. That seemed normal, even helpful. I found out later from Carl, who had a habit of being around without anyone noticing, that Linda had taken photographs. Not just of the bathroom, of the master bedroom closet, of the furnace room, of the backyard. Carl had seen her on the back deck with her phone, turning slowly, like she was doing a virtual tour for someone who wasn't there. When I asked her about it, she said she was just trying to help me understand what deferred maintenance might look like to a future buyer. She used the phrase future buyer so naturally that I understood it had been in her vocabulary for some time. I started paying closer attention after that. Barbara and I had a joint account, which made sense for 41 years and made me vulnerable now. Neil's name was also on the account as a secondary holder. We'd added him years ago after Barbara's first health scare in 2018 when the doctors thought it might be her heart, and we wanted to make sure Neil could help manage bills if anything happened to us. The something happened, but not what we'd expected, and not then. The access remained. I noticed the first transfer in December. $500 moved from our joint account to an account I didn't recognize. I called the bank. The transaction had been authorized from an IP address in Phoenix. Neil's address. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, staring at the bank statement. Then I called Carl, who's 32 now, works as a machinist at a tool and die shop in Pontiac, and has more sense than most people twice his age. Uncle Gerald, he said, always called me uncle, even though technically I'm his cousin. How you holding up? I told him what I'd found. Carl went quiet the way he does when he's thinking hard. Then he said, how long do you want to wait before you do something? Long enough to know how much, I said. Over the next 6 weeks, I tracked it carefully. Small amounts, irregular intervals, always from the joint account. Another $3,000 in late December. $5,500 in early January. $8,000 2 weeks later. By mid-January, it had reached $45,000. Neil was being methodical about it, which told me he'd thought it through. This wasn't desperation. This was planning. There was also a conversation I overheard. I wasn't hiding or eavesdropping on purpose. I was in the hallway coming back from the bathroom when Linda was on the phone in the living room talking to someone about timelines and market conditions. Once the house lists, she was saying, the timeline takes care of itself. He'll have to make a decision about placement, and honestly, at his age, what choice does he have? She didn't specify placement where or what timeline she was talking about, but the tone made it clear enough. I was being discussed like a problem that needed solving, not a person making decisions about his own life. I called my lawyer on a Tuesday morning in January. Her name is Joyce Bennett, and I've worked with her since 2005 when Barbara and I first updated our wills. She's not a warm woman, but she's thorough and she doesn't waste time on pleasantries when there's business to handle. I told her everything. The transfers, the photographs, the conversations, the pressure about moving. She listened without interrupting, taking notes in that precise handwriting lawyers seem to learn in school. When I finished, she said, Gerald, I think it's time you told me about the property your wife registered in her name in 2020. I was quiet for a moment. Barbara told you about that. Barbara updated her estate planning with me in March of last year. She was quite clear about what she wanted. I assumed you knew the specifics. I did, and I didn't. Barbara had mentioned the property to me, the place up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula that she had found using money from a small inheritance when her aunt passed in 2019. Aunt Helen had been a teacher too, never married, left Barbara $85,000 when she died. Barbara had mentioned it the way she mentioned many things she'd done quietly and competently while I was looking elsewhere. I found something she'd said one evening while we were watching the news. Something for later. I hadn't asked enough questions. I thought later meant retirement, maybe, or some vague future we'd figure out together. I didn't understand she meant specifically this moment, when I would need somewhere to go that belonged to me and only me. Joyce pulled out a file I hadn't seen before. The property is a 3-bedroom log cabin on 5 acres of forested land, 12 minutes from Lake Superior. Your wife bought it outright in September 2020 for $280,000 cash. She registered it solely in her name. In her estate planning, it passes solely to you. Neil was not mentioned anywhere in the documentation. The file contained photographs, a cedar log house with a green metal roof and a screened porch, white birch trees, a creek running along what looked like the eastern edge of the property. It looked like the kind of place Barbara would choose, peaceful and private and built to last. Joyce continued. The beneficiary designations on Barbara's life insurance were also updated in March of last year. They name you as primary and Carl as secondary. Neil was removed from all beneficiary designations at that time. Barbara had known something, not necessarily everything, not the full scale of what Neil was planning, but she had known enough about the direction of things to plan around them. She had known her son well enough to protect me from him. I sat with that information for a long time. It's one of the great acts of love I've ever been on the receiving end of, and I wasn't even aware it was happening. What are my options? I asked. Joyce, several. We can confront Neil directly about the unauthorized transfers. We can file a police report for elder financial abuse. We can seek a restraining order. Or she paused, we can let him continue thinking he's in control while you make your own plans. I thought about that last option. What would that look like? You have every legal right to change the locks on your property, remove Neil's access to the joint account, and relocate to the Michigan property without anyone's permission or advance notice. You could also document everything he's doing while he's doing it, in case you need evidence later. I like the sound of that, not the confrontation part, not yet. The part where I got to choose my own timing instead of reacting to his. That afternoon I drove up to Michigan to see the cabin for myself. The drive took 6 hours through Detroit and up I-75, then west toward the lake on smaller roads that cut through state forest. The GPS led me down a gravel drive that wound through those white birch trees I'd seen in the photographs. The cabin was everything the pictures had shown, and more. Solid construction, good bones, recently maintained. Barbara had left it furnished with simple, sturdy pieces. A wood stove in the living room, a kitchen with windows facing the creek, a master bedroom with a view of the birch grove. There was a note tucked into the kitchen window frame as if she had expected I might arrive alone and needing guidance. The note was 3 sentences written in Barbara's careful teacher handwriting. I won't share what they said. They were meant for me, but I'll tell you that I sat on that screened porch for 2 hours after reading it, looking out at the gray January sky above the tree line, and I understood for the first time in 4 months that I was going to be all right. I drove back to Dearborn that evening with a plan forming in my mind. The next morning, I called a locksmith. I need the locks changed on my house, I said. All of them. Front door, back door, garage entrance. When would you like us to come out? The locksmith asked. Today, if possible, while my son and his wife are at their hotel. I scheduled it for Wednesday afternoon. Neil and Linda were staying at a Hampton Inn near the airport, coming by the house every day to help me sort through things. I made sure to mention I was going grocery shopping and would be gone for a couple hours. While the locksmith worked, I started packing, methodically, the way I'd learned to approach any big job during my years at the plant. Break it down into manageable pieces, prioritize what matters most, execute the plan step by step. First, Barbara's things. Her photographs, organized in albums she'd kept for decades. Pictures of Neil's Little League games, family vacations to Mackinac Island, Christmas mornings graduations. Her collection of books, mostly mysteries and gardening guides, with margins full of her neat pencil notes. The cedar jewelry box she'd kept on her dresser, filled with the letters we wrote each other during my brief deployment to the Persian Gulf in 1991, back when letters still mattered. Then my tools, 40 years of accumulated equipment from the plant and from weekend projects around the house. My machinist's measuring tools, precision instruments I'd maintained and calibrated for decades. Hand tools Barbara had given me for birthdays and Father's Days, each one chosen with care. These weren't just tools. They represented the ability to fix things, build things, maintain what I owned. The important papers came next. Insurance policies, pension documents, the deed to the house, Barbara's teaching certificates, my union membership records, the documentation of a life built carefully, one decision at a time. I also called the bank. With Joyce's help, I formally removed Neil's access to the joint account. The process required notarized documentation and a face-to-face meeting with a bank manager, but by Thursday afternoon, Neil could no longer move money from an account he'd never earned the right to control. The remaining funds, about $78,000 after Neil's unauthorized withdrawals, were transferred to a new account in my name only. Not a fortune, but combined with my pension and Social Security, enough to live independently for as long as I wanted. Over 3 weekends in February, while Neil and Linda believed I was thinking over my options, I moved the better part of my life 6 hours north. A small moving company recommended by Carl handled the furniture and boxes. 2 guys named Pete and Rick, who treated my belongings with respect and didn't ask questions about why a man my age was moving to the middle of nowhere in Michigan. By the 3rd weekend of February, I was essentially living at the cabin while maintaining the appearance of still being in Dearborn. I'd drive down Sunday evenings for Neil and Linda's Monday visits, stay through Tuesday or Wednesday, then head back north. It wasn't sustainable long-term, but it bought me time to transition on my own schedule rather than theirs. The cabin felt like home almost immediately. Barbara had chosen well. The wood stove heated the whole place sufficiently. The well water tasted better than anything that came out of the tap in Dearborn. The silence at night was complete. No traffic, no neighbors, just the sound of wind in the birch trees and the creek running along the eastern edge of the property. I started understanding why Barbara had fallen in love with this place. There was something about the scale of it that put things in perspective. The trees had been growing for decades before I was born and would continue growing long after I was gone. The lake had been there for millennia. Against that backdrop, Neil's schemes seemed smaller and more manageable. Neil called me in late January to tell me he had spoken with a real estate agent. "Dad, we've got some good news about the market. Sandra thinks April would be perfect for listing. Spring inventory is always low, and buyers start looking seriously once the weather turns." Sandra. He'd already chosen an agent without asking me. "April," I said. "And when were you planning to tell me the house was for sale, Dad?" He had that tone again. The one that suggested I was being unreasonable. "We've talked about this. You can't stay in that house indefinitely. It's just not practical." "You're right," I said. "I'm not staying in that house." There was a pause. I could hear Linda's voice in the background, asking who was on the phone. "What do you mean?" Neil asked. "I mean, I moved out 3 weeks ago. I've been living in Michigan since the second week of February." "Michigan? What are you talking about? Where are you staying?" "My house," I said. "Your mother's house, which she left to me, which you were never going to inherit." The silence that followed had a different quality than the usual pauses in our conversations. This wasn't Neil thinking about his response. This was Neil trying to process information that didn't fit with his assumptions about how things worked. "What are you talking about?" he said finally. "Your mother bought property in Michigan's Upper Peninsula in 2020. She left it to me in her will, the will that Joyce Bennett helped her draft. The same Joyce Bennett who has been my lawyer for over 15 years, and who has all the documentation you would need to understand that this is not a matter you have any standing in." "You're telling me Mom bought a house and never told either of us?" "She told me," I said, which was almost entirely true. "She didn't tell you because it wasn't yours to know about." I could hear him breathing. Hear Linda asking questions in the background that he wasn't answering. "Dad, this is crazy. You can't just—" He stopped, started again. "There's money missing from the account. A lot of money." I let that sentence hang in the air between us. "Is there?" I said. "Dad, don't play games with me. There's $45,000 missing from the joint account." "Neil," I said, "I have bank records, transaction logs, IP addresses, and a lawyer who has already drafted correspondence regarding unauthorized transfers from a joint account following the death of the primary account holder. I also have, if it comes to it, Linda's voice on a phone call recorded on my own property discussing the timeline of a sale of a house she had no authority over." He didn't say anything for a long moment. I could hear Linda asking urgent questions in the background, her voice getting higher. "I don't want to use any of that," I continued, and I meant it. "I want you to understand that I know everything. I want you to understand what your mother understood about you, and I want you to make a choice about what kind of person you're going to be going forward. Dad, I can explain, but I need you to also understand that the house in Dearborn is going to sell on my timeline, and the proceeds belong to me. What your mother left behind belongs to me. And if I choose to give you anything at all, it will be a gift, not an obligation." The line was quiet long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. "She knew," he said finally. His voice was different, smaller. "Mom knew what I was doing." "Your mother knew you," I said. "She loved you anyway. That was her business. What happens next is yours." I hung up and went outside to split firewood. Physical work helps me think. Always has. After an hour of splitting oak logs into manageable pieces, I felt calmer about the whole situation. Neil would either figure out how to be a better man or he wouldn't. Either way, I'd be fine. Carl came up that weekend. He arrived Saturday afternoon in his beat-up Chevy with a bag of groceries and no announcement, which is exactly his way. We walked the property together in the late afternoon light, following the creek down to where it emptied into a larger stream that eventually fed into Lake Superior. "How are you doing, Uncle Gerald?" he asked. "Better," I said. "Getting better every day." We walked for a while without talking. Carl had Barbara's quality of being comfortable in silence, which I've always valued. She picked a good spot, he said, looking out at the water through the trees. She had good instincts about people and places, I agreed. That evening we grilled burgers on the small deck Barbara had apparently built the previous summer. Carl told me about his work at the shop, about a woman he'd started seeing who taught at the elementary school in Pontiac. Good, solid people making honest livings, building something real. Joyce handled the Dearborn house sale on my behalf that spring. I didn't want to deal with showings and negotiations and all the complications that come with selling property. The house sold in April for $320,000, exactly what Neil had predicted the market would bear. From the proceeds, I transferred $40,000 each to Neil and to Carl. Different amounts than I'd originally planned, but fair given the circumstances. Carl called me immediately, surprised. "Uncle Gerald, this is too much." "It's what Barbara would have wanted," I told him, and I meant it. She always believed in taking care of family who take care of family. Neil called 3 days later. He didn't try to thank me in any way that suggested he thought he deserved the money. He just said he was sorry and that he and Linda were getting some counseling about financial stress and family relationships. "I'm glad to hear that," I said. "Dad, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know I understand now why Mom planned things the way she did. Do you? She was protecting you. From me. From my problems. It wasn't a complete understanding, but it was a start. Michigan is beautiful in July if you want to come up sometime," I told him. "Your mother would have liked showing you this place." I left the rest unsaid. Some things a person has to figure out on their own. Linda and I never spoke directly after that. I had nothing to say to Linda, and apparently she had nothing to say to me that didn't involve my assets or my living arrangements. I'm writing this on the screened porch in the middle of August with a cup of coffee that's actually hot because I've learned to sit down before I pour it, not after. The Lake Superior light in the morning has a quality I haven't found anywhere else. Something to do with the angle and the water and the way it catches in the birch leaves at the edge of the property. Carl is driving up next weekend with his girlfriend, who wants to see the creek ecosystem and maybe do some fishing. I told him they were both welcome to stay as long as they wanted. There's a township meeting in September about a proposed development further up the peninsula. The developer wants to clear-cut 200 acres for vacation condos. My neighbor who runs the kayak rental operation asked if I wanted to come speak against it. I was a union man for 40 years, which means I understand both what gets built and what gets lost in the building process. I have something to say about protecting places like this. I still talk to Barbara sometimes, mostly on the long walks around the property. When there's no one around, I'll comment on the light or the deer tracks or something I read in the newspaper that would have made her laugh. The practice helps me organize my thoughts, and I suspect that was always part of what she was for me. Not that she was just a function, but part of love is that it helps you understand yourself better. Listen, if you're a man my age dealing with adult children who think they know what's best for you, here's what I learned. The people who built something real don't automatically owe it to the people who want to inherit it. Your life belongs to you, not to your kids' financial plans. And if you're smart about it, if you plan ahead like Barbara did, you can protect yourself from family members who confuse loving you with controlling your assets. The law is on your side if you document everything and work with professionals who understand elder financial abuse. Don't let anyone rush you into decisions about your home, your money, or your future just because they think age makes you vulnerable. It doesn't have to.